Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and this is the Warrior G6, specifically the 6.1 blocker review. So we're going to do the review on the gloves. I have both gloves, the 6.1 and the 6.0. So we're going to do full review on that and full review on the pads as well. And the first one is going to be the G6 blocker. And this is something that I feel is really awesome, and we'll kind of talk about it in this review because of what I saw on this one and kind of what they went through on here. Just a quick overview of what this is before we jump into everything else. So the G6 now has two lines to it basically, or two options to it. The GT line is gone. It's just the G6 line, which I think is a good idea. We'll talk about that in the pads more than what is right here. But in doing so, Warrior offered a few different options compared to what the G6 is. So obviously I don't have a G6 to compare, like a straight up G6, I have a 6.1. So we'll kind of talk about the differences between the two because mostly the G6 kind of went the same direction as this, but with some G5 properties, which again, we'll talk about. So before we jump into the actual review, if you want to support the channel so I keep making videos and doing more content like this review, because I had to buy this set myself, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy if you're in Canada and Pure Hockey if you're in the United States. Clicking those links and making purchases gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can keep buying gear like this and talking about it and doing reviews. Otherwise, if you want to just support the channel, check out Patreon, Buy Me Coffee. Everything that goes through there always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing actual videos on everything. Now, another thing that is very helpful, and it's helped me with some true skates in the past. If you want to see me review specific pieces of gear, please reach out to the companies on social media like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, stuff like that. Let them know that you want to see me review a piece of equipment so I can talk about it, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. Now onto this glove. I was very critical about the G5 blocker. I didn't like it at all. It had some good features on it, like the rebounds on it were pretty good, and I understood the whole cover edge thing and how this pushes it out further and why it was straighter, so you got like a full height. I'll show the height differences on these side by side on like a different angle and we'll overview it. But a lot of the rest of this glove was really disappointing to me, and I called out a lot of things on it. So we'll kind of, while we go through like the features on this glove, we'll kind of dive back into this glove and talk about that as well. Kind of look at what was changed and how it got better or worse. It got better. So while this really isn't important in the grand scheme of things, we always talk about it. So we are going to talk about the graphic. So the blocker graphic matches the pad graphic very well. So that's not really hard to compare to. So it just matches, right? But the thing it doesn't really match is the catching glove. So we'll kind of look at that here. So both of these are supposed to be the exact same design, and I guess it really works if you twist it this way, and then it kind of matches pretty good. So I can't totally complain about that because as you can see, orange, everything's good. And honestly, in butterfly blocking position, which is most of what I do, this matches pretty good. The thing it doesn't match is this spot is gone, which is kind of sad. It's a super minor thing, but it goes on the back. So if you did have like a specific color here, I have black and brown, it goes on the back and not on the front. So you kind of lose that there. So say if you had a really bright color like white, only in that spot, well, I mean, it'd be kind of weird to stick in there. It's only going to be on the back. Not a huge deal, but I wanted to call it out. Now, for the graphics themselves, this is going to happen again and again with this whole set, but bear with me because obviously if you don't watch one, you have to hear it anyways. Graphics on these are super mediocre, and this is beating a dead horse at this point because Warrior has kind of, in my opinion, made pretty mediocre graphics since the Warrior G2. I kind of like the G2, but even then it was super boring and plain, and it honestly seems like this graphic design is done for the most efficient way possible for use of Gen Pro. And what I mean by that is everything is a straight line or like a slight angle. There's no curves, there's no cutouts or anything. So everything on there can be pretty efficiently cut out of Gen Pro and reused for other stuff. So I feel like that's what they're doing for this. It goes on the side too, but Gen Pro here and everywhere, which is fine. But I feel like that is the whole purpose of their graphic designs and has been for a long time. It's pretty meh. I do like how they have the retro version of the set that is available, which is great because then you can get just a very clean looking retro thing. Obviously this isn't clean, and obviously I did this for a reason. I really do think that they're kind of like missing out on graphic possibilities, but at least with Warrior, every single time you grab a new one, like while these aren't identical, you could make them kind of look pretty close to each other. So at least there is that piece of it where if you buy one of a previous one and then the next one, you can kind of line them up pretty close and make them kind of match and kind of looking the same, even though they're not the same generation. So I got to give them credit for that, because then like obviously stuff just matches better, and that's always nicer. I also do like how Warrior kind of does a different indent. So this one, it was like a golf ball dimple right here, as you can hopefully see in this green and also in this orange right there, where the new one is this interesting like cylinder like shapes indents. I think that's kind of cool, something unique they do, just like compressing obviously the material to make it look like that, but it's a kind of an interesting thing and it looks good. Now again, I think this graphic is pretty mediocre, and obviously this is a crazy colorway, so it's not like me, I was trying to get a specific design looking thing. I just don't like how basically everything is just rectangles and almost squares. It's all rectangles, so it's like kind of disappointing just because you can't do anything kind of out there and kind of crazy. But I get it from an efficiency manufacturer standpoint, and from also keeping the lines alive. It's just I wish there was something more there so you could do a little bit better or do a little bit more and do little different things. But it is what it is, and at this point Warrior has been doing it for generations, so I don't see that changing, and it's really a nitpick and not a huge issue because graphics really don't matter all that much. So starting from here, obviously the biggest thing is the shape, and again, you can get the G6 in a more straight shape than what this is, but I like this more rounded shape, and I liked this a lot on the Brian's Genetic 5 set, where with this little thing right here, everything is a lot more controllable to me. When it kind of hits up here, I feel like I can just angle it down and kind of away a bit better, whereas this one isn't, like, you can still do it, and there's a ton of puck marks on this to show it, but I just had a few times where I thought I would make a save, and it happened a few, like more than once, where I thought I would make a save and I reach out with my blocker and it went off my blocker and actually went in. Very rare thing, and it's going to happen regardless depending on like the angle of your blocker board, right? With this, I just feel like when you are reaching, because there is that slope, it's a little bit less of a chance. It kind of gives you a little bit of a cheat, as in if it's a little bit flatter, it can hit that slope or kind of ramp and move a little bit, where if it's like this, if it hits it, it's going to go, has a better chance of going in. And I definitely noticed that happening with this one, and I just love this like positioning and everything on the board and this shape of the board. I just find it a lot more easier to direct pucks where I want them to, and to keep them kind of a bit lower when you kind of want to punch them out. So I'm a big fan of that. Also, talking about the board, the face on it, kind of harder to get a sound of just because this is like coming off because it's shaped, whereas this one is all flat. But this is, and Warrior just comes straight out about this, is the 6.1 has less of a pop than what the 6 does. And they said, I think the board, well, one, the board's thinner, as you can see, but I believe this is just slightly less stiff. But I did notice it. This board doesn't kick out shots like crazy like Bauer gloves do. It's still good. It's good enough for me. I'm happy to use it. I don't feel like I'm really losing a ton with it, but it's not crazy like Bauer gloves are. And it's solid though. It's just not the best there is. It's just solid all around. When we look at the glove here, you can really see as well that kind of shape difference, but you actually don't really lose much height, as you can see right here. It is kind of pretty close to what the other one is. So even with that shape and that you'd think you'd lose some height on there, you really don't. It's pretty much the same surface area. It obviously doesn't come out as far, so you are kind of losing that angle of attack a little bit with here because the face is out further. But that's honestly, I think that's a little bit of a gimmick on the gloves compared to that outer roll on the pads. But this is like, I like that shape. That shape's totally worth it to me. I love that shape compared to this, so I'm happy to go that way, and you don't really lose anything on height with the glove. Now going to the side, you obviously see that bigger profile, but you see a couple of changes with the sidewall right here, and it's just a kind of redefined shape right here. But you can also see this one pushing out, which we'll get to in a second. But you can also see the like redesign here where this one sticks out, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the fingertip protection and everything, because that's kind of the index finger protection. But this is obviously a change where this is flatter, so this won't get in the way as much, where when you do hold this for a stick position, it kind of does happen to get in the way a little bit, and this one kind of just opens it up a little bit more. So decent idea here. A lot of companies are doing this more, where they're slimming this out more and more, so you get less restriction basically on the stick and less interference with the stick. I don't necessarily agree with that, because I think you lose some index finger protection, especially on like the Bauer 1X, and to the 2-piece Hyperlite definitely lost that. But I understand why they're going that route, and I get why they're doing this. I did find this kind of stuck on my paddle a little bit and push the blocker board up a little bit. This one is obviously a lot better for that. When we go on the side, you can really see how, well, I guess we should look at this way to see it, but how much sturdier this sidewall is versus this one, where it kind of floats out like that. And this one is a lot more sturdier. Now this is obviously a newer one, but this is way more reinforced. This is a lot stiffer foam. I don't know if there's a composite in here, but it's a lot stiffer foam than what is on this one, which was super bendy and everything. So huge improvements on the sidewall here. This was another place where I kind of called out with this glove, I should say specifically, where I took a puck basically right here and I felt it go through here as well, and it was uncomfortable, and it hurt, but it didn't do damage, but it hurt and it was uncomfortable. I have a ton of blockers, and that was the first one that's really done that in a long time. So this is a lot more beefed up, and you can see took a puck right in the edge and had zero issues whatsoever. This board is very good for that. And another thing I want to call out, and while this doesn't really matter, people complained about it on this glove. Again, you can see that tilting really good right here. The difference is pretty staggering. The foams was sticking out here, so people thought this was a poor design, and they thought it was a quality issue. And like people actually thought on Reddit, I think, that this was like kind of breaking down and they wanted it warranted. This wasn't really an issue. It's not pretty and it's not great fit and finish. This one is way better, so I got to give Warrior credit for doing that. That one just, everything lines up better there, and it's just better done on there as well. And we'll kind of show off some of the adjustment pieces right here in a second, but we'll keep going along the rest of the glove. Looking on the outside, you can definitely see again that board shape, and you can also see the adjustable palm. So here's that palm where you could adjust it high, mid, low for the palm height on the board itself. And here is the sewn in option right here. So you can see no adjustments whatsoever, just totally sewn in, and I'm a huge fan of that. I'm happy that this is an option. So the cuffs are adjustable, and you can see I put them on their lowest one to get, like you can see it right here. I actually put it lower than what you're kind of supposed to. You're supposed to put it around here. I put it on the lowest so you can get most wrist movement possible. Ideally, I think they would prefer it to be one up from the wrist strap, but again, I'm trying to get the most motion possible. And when you do that right here, this one was terrible for that. So even on the lowest possible, it doesn't move a lot, and this totally gets in the way, and I can't, it's not a good bend. If you take this off totally, it's a lot better, as you can see. And so that's where this cuff is coming in the way. And this is a place where companies are really moving to open this up. True did it with their very square design. That's very open. And then Bauer did it with the mock, where it's totally gone completely, and like that inner cuff, so it flexes a lot. So if I put this back on the higher one, it was terrible, like absolutely terrible flexibility in here, and the wrist just gets in the way totally. And so when you go on the lower one, obviously you get a bit more movement on that, so you can move it more, but it's not that great. This one is a lot better. So you can definitely see the different cuff design on here, where this is just, it's like a similar idea, but just the shape and everything is, this one comes out a lot more, so you can kind of see how it like bows out around your wrist a lot more, which is a great design. And it's kind of just attached in a slightly different way, which these small changes make a huge difference. The other part, this is there's a dense foam in here and a soft foam. This is just like, it's a harder density foam. It feels overall more dense than what this one is, so more protection added there, which is always a great thing. And we look at how the hand moves a lot more on this one, and this is on that bottom one, but a lot more wrist movement and like movement with my everything here. This is a lot better and really good. I have zero complaints about this. Some gloves are better, like the mock, which doesn't have one, but this is solid. And just to do a comparison's sake, we'll kind of take this out and we will put it on like where it normally would be. Actually, it does feel like that is where the normal one is like that lower spot, but if you put it higher, you still get excellent wrist movement totally. But I'm going to keep it lower because it does feel like it moves better. But that like contoured piece basically just works so much better than what's on the old one. And again, this is something I called out on my G5. I was critical about this blocker for this, and this is a huge improvement. So a lot of credit to Warrior for that. So you can see how the palms right here are pretty similar in designs with this piece right here. I have found I don't need to keep this tight at all. It feels pretty good, but you can adjust it obviously. And I do like what Warrior did here, where some other companies don't, where all the piece that isn't attached is all the soft Velcro, so it won't like get caught up on a jersey or other pieces of equipment, and the actual sticky part is right here. Sometimes companies do like the sticky part, or like the harder part right here, they get stuck to things. Great job for Warrior for not doing that. But you can see right here, this palm and everything is pretty similar right here. Everything's there. The new one does feel it's a little bit, I think it's probably the same foams all the way through. So solid design right there. And I'm a very huge fan of that. The other part that we kind of can see right here is the adjustable thumb pillow. So you still have the side adjustments right here. So this wing, like the attachment of this thumb here, can go up and down, as you can see. And as you can see here. So I'm not going to show that off and do it because I did a whole video on this on how to adjust everything. It's the same way as on this, and you can just move it up and down, and you do have the Velcro in here to also adjust that up and down. Remember, this palm is not adjustable, but you can still adjust this to your liking. And it does kind of have the same construction as the adjustable version, which would be the normal G6. Or if you order the 6.1 with adjustable, it would be like you still have that option there, and that's how it kind of connects. So this whole thing really could come out if you wanted it to, and to show it off. And it does have Velcro in here as well, kind of attaching it to this board, which this one also did have, but this one I found flared out a lot more because it was so much softer, where this one was so much more dense and holding in place better. Everything on here is just a better design for it. But again, very similar in everything here, just slight tweaks to make it better, and I sewn in for me, so which I like more. And the other thing here too is that adjustable thumb piece, which I do like because it does allow you to adjust if you have bigger hands or smaller hands. Just pull this tighter and it will make the glove feel more snug. You can loosen up and you get more up here, so you get more length out of the thumb. Great idea. Obviously you can't really do that with fingers, but great idea right there. And you can order different palm sizes. This one is just a large. So another great thing that Warrior is offering on this glove, even if this one isn't replaceable, again, if you want to do that, you can do this way, but I like the more secure feel in there. So keeping up with the rest of this thumb area, this padded piece right here is considerably denser than what's in here, which also I think adds to that protection over here. So you have that much more dense board, as well as a lot thicker padding. So you have a much more dense foam, and it feels honestly pretty thick all the way through right here. So as a comparison, you can kind of see this one looks like a pillow. I can squeeze that in and you don't get a lot. You get like a dense foam right here, and that's it, but the density is really tiny all the way through. You can see how it's kind of like segmented, where this one is all just one molded piece right now, and it definitely feels like might be just all one piece foam, but if it's not, there's a lot more density overall into this, so a lot more padded and protection in this whole thumb piece, like basically going all through here. And even right here too, this, like both of these are like almost like a plastic insert, which is probably correct because it's a thumb piece. Back here, there is just like more dense foams on the insides of this one. What this one is, this one just goes kind of like all the way in, as you can see, where this one, it doesn't, because there is foams backing it for more protection. And you can see an interesting addition here, which we'll talk about more in a second, which is this binding right here. So you have a Gen Pro binding across here, where this was like bindingless design, and it's all kind of sewn on the inside. We'll see that more, but you can see some wear right here, where now that will just transition to the binding, which is easier to replace. You have basically the same idea and the same palm overall, slightly different grays in here. I don't know if that's like a difference, or if it's just like the removable ones are this and not removable ones for this mesh gusset. But everything in here feels like very similar. You have maybe a little bit more foam padding right here, which is like a nice addition. You have like basically the same structure on the like fingertips and everything on there all feels pretty similar to itself, but you do lose some of that padding on the inside right here, so you don't have that little padding right there, which is right here, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the index finger protection and the fingertip protection. Overall, the palm is like pretty similar design. The materials all feel like just the famous Warrior Nash materials, which honestly I don't love that much. I feel like they do kind of get less grippy, and they're soft, but I feel like I'd prefer Sure Grip, but it's not bad, and it's fine, and it's good enough. I like this glove a lot more than this glove. I don't know if it is because of just the sewn in piece rather than the Velcro on piece, but to me, this glove feels a lot less like unbalanced and loose. It's still like, you can still slop it a bit, but if we tighten this up, that helps with that. And again, I don't really have to wear this that tight when actually wearing it, and I don't like to wear it tight because then it's harder to take off, so I can grab a drink of water. But it definitely just feels more balanced and everything in it because of, again, I can't say because of, but it definitely feels more balanced and everything feels nicer in there, and it feels like it's less sloppy. And I'm going to give that credit to Warrior because that was, again, one of my complaints on this one. So I'm not sure if the sewn in piece of the backhand without the Velcro does that, or what exactly does that, or if it's this thicker pillow, because you can see how much thicker the pillow is on the 6.6 versus the G5. So that is nice there. Also does add a little bit of protection, but protection test on these with my puck machine was fine. I think, feel some shots in this one when I was using it, but it was very minor and not an issue at all. Ultrasonic was a lot worse than what this one is. So this one was okay overall, but yeah, you can see the difference in the foams in there too. This one just, to me, feels better balanced, and it kind of everything feels more locked in place. So I'm a big fan of that. So finally on that sidewall, we are going to get to index finger protection. So this has changed quite a bit on this glove, and obviously we're going to cover it. You still get this piece right here, which is obviously this piece right here that goes into this glove. I took it out. The reason I took it out is because I use paddle wedges. And if you haven't seen my videos, search paddle wedges. I love that product. It stops pucks from jamming your fingers, and I don't have to worry about different gloves like this. And it's not legal in the NHL, I don't think, but hey, I'm not in the NHL, might as well protect my fingers. So this thing goes in here the same way as it does here. It attaches Velcro in here. So we'll put that on so we can talk about index finger protection, and it can go back here as well. So how you do that, and I'll show this off really quick. Have a little piece right here that you unvelcro. Which is always a pain when it's like so tight in there. And then you slide this in and you adjust to where you want it. And you just Velcro it in place. And then you have more index finger protection, as you can see, just like that. So this placement and everything is very aggressive, and honestly, it's definitely going to get away when you put it on the stick. But the index finger protection with it on there, especially like in this spot, is solid. That puck is not getting in there whatsoever. That's going to get in the way, and it's working with that to get in the way. So that's a solid design right there. And this one's a little aggressive to me. So here we have a much less aggressive version, as you can see, where it does allow my hand to kind of slide back and everything a lot more, but it isn't kind of filling that gap perfectly. But again, with this there as well, you are getting a pretty solid gap, and kind of like it's doing its job. But it does have solid index finger protection with this, and it's kind of a multi-layer of protection, which we'll jump into also a second. But as you can see, kind of adding a little bit right there. And when we compare it to what was on the G5, that piece like right there, and it sticks in there as well. But the new one is honestly just like, I like the new design way better. I do like when things kind of stick down, but I did find that this stuff kind of did get in the way a bit, especially when you're trying to move your wrists around, because it is kind of a tooth. That one does work a little bit better. So I'm a bigger fan of that one. And because that board's harder, like as you can see, it kind of gets out of the way where the other one doesn't. And obviously this isn't a shot, so a shot can be harder and it's going to have a bigger effect. So huge improvements on there. And that's even before we jump into what else is in here. So I'm going to take this off and we'll show what else is inside this. If you want to support the channel so I keep making videos and doing more content like this review, because I had to buy this set myself, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy if you're in Canada and Pure Hockey if you're in the United States. Clicking those links and making purchases gives me a kickback, helps support the channel so I can keep buying gear like this and talking about it and doing reviews. Otherwise, if you want to just support the channel, check out Patreon, Buy Me Coffee. Everything that goes through there always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing actual videos on everything. So you also see here the new redone like finger cap shell thing right here, as you can see, totally different with that binding. We'll cover that in a second. We are still talking about index finger protection. So obviously this is giving you some protection, and this does have that exposed, well, it's an exposed foam, as you can see right there. But it also has this little piece right here, and this piece can come out. So you can just simply Velcro this out and you pull it through the finger and it comes out totally, and you don't need to use it. And I know a bunch of people did that. I didn't do it. I didn't find it getting in the way whatsoever. And it does add that extra bit of protection because you no longer have those little pieces over here, which I think were a nice thing, but this is better in all ways for it. So I can't complain whatsoever. And this piece is, again, a piece of foam right here to give you extra protection. If a puck hits there, it's going to be pretty good. Now, what this material is, because you can't really tell, this is X foam. So this is the same material that is in their goalie mask. And what it feels like, you can see how it kind of dents in. It honestly feels like one of those smart foams all the other companies are doing. And Warrior might not be happy with me saying this, but it feels like a more dense version of Poron, and honestly like a more dense version of the D3O that is being used on these pieces. And that is a good thing. That is going to give you pretty solid protection, and it's going to do the job. And I think that is an excellent addition on here, and I really like it being right here too. And it does kind of close around and gives you extra fingertip protection as well. All this index finger protection is really solid, and I think an improvement over the G5, even if it had this little tooth. And this one is big enough that it still covers everything. Where Bauer slimming this down kind of sucked on the two-piece Hyperlite, this is great. Plus you have those other layers behind it, and when you look at here too, you still have that protection on it too. When your finger is straight out like this, you still get a little bit extra finger protection there, which is excellent and something you did not get at all before. And now that we're looking at this part of the glove, we see the part that I am most excited about for multiple reasons. One, we talked about the paddle down stuff in the previous review where I kind of said the G5 was the worst blocker to do that for paddle down. We'll cover that in a second. But we have this awesome fingertip protection, and the difference of it between this and what is on here is a lot. So you can see it's a lot more slimmed down, and you can see binding. So if you actually went back and watched this one of the things I said was they had to get rid of the bindingless design here, right? So again, there is a binding sort of like it's a connecting point, but it's on the inside. So you have to fold it over and it becomes a bit thicker at the edges. And it's just overall bindingless design means it's a little fatter, where this one, because it's no binding and like, well, there's a binding here, but because it's not like on the inside, it's on the outside. And because this is just an exposed foam right here, instead of having like a coverage, and you can see in here, there still was like a foam under there. And I'm not sure if it's the exact same foam, but all this was so much chunkier than what is on this one. And it's so much more slimmed out, and you can definitely see it when you look at them side by side, just the difference in thickness on these. And the best part is because it's rounded, you actually do get a lot better fingertip protection. And we'll show that off right here, and you can see how much more coverage you get on your fingertips. Now, it's not the best in the industry there is. I think they could be a little bit better. They could put like a little flap. I would love to see this material kind of extended on a little flap kind of right here, and kind of like you could attach it right there somehow with Velcro to make it even slightly better. But this is still a huge improvement, and honestly, it's, I'm gonna say, good enough. It's fine, it's solid. It's not the best, but it's still good. And the point of this is, one, it slims it down. Obviously, we'll show the other one in a second. But the other part is obviously you're still getting that protection, because that is still a harder shell foam piece, as you can see right there. And you do have your padded tops right here, so it acts as multiple layers of kind of protection here. And this is good for people jamming at pucks if you're trying to cover it and paddle down pucks around people jamming it. The other thing it's really good for is if you're ever hugging a post and like someone jams into your post or into your hand. And that always helps too, because when I hug that post, my fingers are right there, and this is a huge bonus to that. It definitely softens a blow, whereas that one caused issues in the past, and this one's way, way better. So we'll take a look at the other one right now to see how much better that really is and how crazy better the other one is. You can see how exposed your fingers are, but this was at the tightest setting to pull it down all the way. And you can just see with the design, it just never covered your fingers at all. So those are always open to be jammed. Can't be jammed at the top. So generally speaking, pucks that hit here are still going to be protected. So this was okay for that, but sticks can get jammed in there, and it happened. And you can also, the other thing is like when you're down like this and say someone like lands on you, your fingers would get kind of caught in under here, which is now protected because of that one. So that's a great thing. And again, that post is a huge difference and benefit as well on the newer one compared to this. So again, huge props to Warrior for listening and making massive adjustments on here, and really, really listening to feedback and changing based on critical feedback that's, I would say, valid. There is a lot of critical feedback out there. A lot of it's not valid. This is a case of critical feedback that was very valid, and Warrior went above and beyond and made this way better. So these are still adjustable, as you can see right here, so you can get this looser or tighter as you want. Obviously, I'm going as tight as possible to get it as close to my fingertips as possible. Actually, that's a little too tight because it doesn't go up all the way. So I'm going to loosen that off just a little bit and kind of put it right there. And that's much better all the way through, because if it is a little too tight, it just doesn't like to go up, because it can get in the way of this a little bit, but it's not really an issue when you're using or anything like that. So this is a huge improvement. This is massive. Huge, huge credit to Kirk and Pete and everyone at Warrior Goalie who looked at this and took feedback on this, and people who complained about this. And again, I'm going to show paddle down in a second, but not only just for paddle down, because this is a huge improvement for fingertip protection all the way through. Massive, massive change. Awesome change. Very welcome to see. Thank you very much for doing this. It makes me really happy. I hated this blocker so much from the sloppiness of it and from that fingertip protection and just like the paddle down here, that I stopped using this blocker when I was using the pads and the gloves. I would use a Bauer 1X blocker. This blocker is honestly one of my favorites that I'm currently using. Again, rebounds aren't that massive, but everything else in there, and because of this, it makes me really happy to use it, and I'm happy to use it. So when I'm using these pads and the glove, I'm using the blocker. And that means a lot to me. Just like that says a lot about the glove, and especially the improvements compared to the old glove. So great, great job by Warrior there. So I call this out on the G5. This is obviously the G5 blocker, and specifically where the finger protection right here, when you go down, it gets in the way of like a puck, and when you're all the way down, it's kind of like this. You really got to kind of force it on the inside, and even then there's a gap. The puck doesn't go under it, but if you don't drop that way and you drop straight down, you can see that. I noticed that a lot when I was playing. The other thing I noticed is, generally speaking, when I go down, and I found with this blocker it does it too, you can kind of see how it's just angled on the side. When I go down, it's more on that side, so it's even bigger. So when I was ever leaning like this in an RVH, trying to block a pass out mid, you can see how much that stick is off the ice, and it missed all these passes over and over again. And I missed a few dump-ins too, where a guy just dumped it in. It was kind of hopping a bit, so I went like this, and the puck slid right under, and I made a video on that and called it out. Now, in doing so, Warrior fixed a lot, as you can see, as this is the new the 6.1, so it's not quite the 6.0, so it's slightly different. But going down, you can see how much more that is sealed. And then even when you're like straight down, it's still sealed better. So that's like me, it's more angled over here than straight down. So even if I leaned like on the far side, it might go under over there, but everything else is a lot better. And this is pretty standard for glove fingertip protection and everything, so it's fine. But naturally, it's covering that a lot better going down, and it's a lot better design. So now talking about weight and balance of this glove. So unfortunately, this is where I don't really have any new blockers to really talk about compared to this, besides the G5. And I have this Hyperlite 2-piece, but it's a really old design and it's not like the stock one. So we'll compare it a little bit, but I don't have anything really else new that I can compare with this. Optic 2s are a generation old, and it's a custom optic which has a thicker board, so it's heavier. I have a 1S I use a lot of, which is a really old glove, so there's no point reviewing that. And then a JRZ, which again, not really in the ballpark of these. So we'll compare it against what we got here. Based on balance and everything, I don't like to weigh gloves and gear, and I talk about this all the time, but I'm gonna talk about it again, specifically for like equipment. I don't like to weigh it because people are too focused on numbers, and they'll say, oh, that's lighter, so it's better, but it's not always the case. Now, out of these gloves, when I put them on, I also weighed them just to see an idea of if I was right in my thinking or if it was just totally a balance thing. And I can tell you that this glove feels the heaviest, this glove feels the lightest, and this one is in between, and I was right on for that guess. Now, with that said, it's not a big enough difference for it to really matter. Putting this glove on, the balance feels excellent, and moving it around and everything feels very good. I never feel like notice it at all. It feels awesome. Pucks hit it and it doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like lower on the board heavy, so it goes like that. Everything is really good there and solid there. I'm a huge fan of it. Zero complaints. I don't feel like it's heavy, even though it does weigh more and it does feel a little bit heavier than this when you're wearing it. It just feels better on my hand, and overall the balance of it just feels overall better. Then we go to this glove, which is like the lightest of them all, and when you put it on side by side, it does feel lighter, but it doesn't feel as good balance. It basically just, it feels too sloppy, which is one, the palm height on it is too big, but it just doesn't feel like it is sturdy enough. And I have noticed times when pucks hit this and it kind of moves more than I want it to, which again is part of that, but also it's part of a balance thing too. And the balance on this one is absolutely excellent. So I have to give Warrior credit for it. And that's the thing where weight isn't the full picture. This balance on here is solid. As for hand position on this one, again, this is the non-removable palm, so this one just sewn in. The hand position on it is kind of like right in the middle. So it does have a nice amount of blocker like over here. I like a nice balanced one. It's one of the reasons why I kept going back to the 1X, and we'll talk about that in a second. Just because I like, it's a nice balanced feel where gloves like the Supreme and how you can adjust this so your hand's higher. There's more of the board below your fingers and below your hand down there. So sometimes when pucks hit it, it can tilt it, but it's also easier to get low shot. This one is honestly right in the middle, and it's fine and it's good. And I like when you stick your fingers out, your fingers aren't like at the edge and it's not blowing past the edge like on other ones, but you do have some overlap up here, which is fine by me. And again, balance feels really good. As a comparison, when you get a glove like this, which is more of the hand's kind of lower, you can see like the protection comes past there and your fingers are pretty close to the edge of the board right here. So your hand's kind of really down there. So you get more overlap up here, but you get more of the blocker and like impact on your wrist and upper. So you get less of that twisting, and it's just a different balance feel. total personal preference thing. This with the adjustable palm, you could obviously move it. This one is right in the middle. That is where this one feels like it's a very solid choice, and it feels excellent in my hand, and I really like it. I like stopping pucks with it. I like directing pucks with it. It does a very solid thing overall. Now, my one area of complaint for this is, well, I should say there's probably two. One is this little piece right here is fraying, as you can see, just because this nylon is, I'm assuming, just rubbing against my sticks when I'm like, there is some grip on the stick. I use Warrior sticks specifically, but that is a little bit disappointing, but it's not a big deal whatsoever. I don't know what Warrior could really do to fix this besides putting like a binding there and Gen Pro, but if you put Gen Pro, this is going to touch your stick and it's going to get stuck. And I already have issues with Gen Pro and sliding paddles out with the new grips on everything, so this is nicer than what that is, but I'm not sure what they could have done for this one area. It is a seam. As you can see, this is kind of where it is all sewn. So maybe if they could adjust that seam position somewhere, maybe that would be a little bit better, but it's fine. I've used this since they came out. I use this glove about twice a week and it's doing pretty good and I have zero issues with it. So I'm like I said, I'm happy with this overall. And while this is a little bit bad, it's not a major thing at all. The other thing is the palm. I do wish it was a sure grip. I wish it was something a little bit grippier and something that doesn't feel quite as slimy or slippery when wet. But again, kind of a major nitpick there because it does its job fine. And honestly, everything about this glove, it does pretty well. So that is about it for the Warrior G6, specifically 6.1. blocker review. The G5 blocker was, and the whole set was the first Warrior stuff I touched since the G2. Didn't like this blocker. I had a lot of criticisms about it. I called those all out and I was critical about it, and I was more happy with the rest of the set. The blocker I thought was pretty bad. This, on the other hand, is such a huge improvement. And I want to give Warrior a ton of credit for this. They've made this thing into something that I am happily using with my set. And I have enough gear where I can swap stuff out and kind of match close up. Obviously, nothing's going to match this. I would swap this glove out because I didn't like it that badly. And I hated using it, and I'd never use it unless I was doing like getting a photo of the whole gear together. We'd get rid of it. This, on the other hand, is awesome. Amazing glove. It's such a huge improvement. They listened to so many of the like concerns and people had and like critical things people had, like even the piece of foam here, which isn't really a big deal, that's all fixed. The sideboard is way stiffer, being more protective. Great move there. Adding more padding here when people said you would feel shots through the sideboard, great move. Thicker right here, more protection, will last longer, the foams probably, and it kind of keeps your hand in place a little bit more too. Great feature. Open the cuff up, so the cuff isn't just flatter, and so you can actually flex the cuff down. Great improvement. Fingertip protection, massive improvement. Doesn't get in the way, paddle down anymore, and you have way more fingertip coverage. Awesome. Adding X foam for even extra index finger protection. Excellent. Flattening this out, but still being protective all the way through for index finger protection again. Another excellent choice. Giving you a round board. Another excellent choice. All of these things are very solid decisions that Warrior has made to make a very good glove, and I'm very happy to use it. The other thing too is giving that option to have that sewn in backhand for more secure feel. Another excellent choice by Warrior, and again, they deserve so much credit for this. This glove is so much better than what this one is, and it's a huge improvement. So thank you very much to Warrior for making these changes. I always love to see when companies actually make the effort, look at critical feedback, and make changes for the better and make a better product. That's why I like doing reviews. I like to see iterations of things. I like to see things change. And this thing has changed for the better, and it is awesome to see. So I'm very happy with this glove. Happily recommend this glove. Even if you're not getting a whole Warrior set and you just want like a blocker, this is a very good option out there, and it's solid. Like, there's a lot of things to like about this. I have very few complaints, and that is saying a lot coming from me. I'll be reviewing the pads as well as the 6.1 and 6.0, I guess, glove, and we'll do a full review of those as well. This one is just the one that came first because honestly, I was most excited about this because of all the changes they made on it. So thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this blocker is, and if you have used it compared to the G5, what your thoughts are. If you want to see me review any specific gear, let me know in the comments. And also, greatly appreciate it and helpful if you reach out to the companies on social media, whether it be Instagram, Twitter, through their contact us form on their website. Doing that helps me get on their radar so I can keep getting gear and hopefully do more reviews. I bought this set myself, so that costs money, and obviously it is expensive, and there's a lot of gear out there. It would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, if you're buying hockey equipment and you live in Canada, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy. If you're in the US, to Pure Hockey. Clicking those links and making a purchase gives me a kickback so I can keep buying more gear and making more videos. Otherwise, check out Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through those always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more videos and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.